Welcome to Newsbeacon, your trusted source for breaking headlines, global insights, and sharp analysis from around the world. On August 29, 2025, the Trump administration abruptly ended the de minimis exemption for Canadian goods, a policy that had allowed duty-free shipments under $800 into the U.S. for years. This sudden change sent shockwaves through the small business community on both sides of the border. Halting duty-free shipments under $800 into the U.S. meant that thousands of small businesses in Canada, which had relied on this exemption to sell their products to American customers, were now facing an uncertain future. This rule had been the backbone for thousands of Canadian small businesses selling to American customers. These businesses had built their models around the ability to ship goods across the border without incurring additional costs, making their products more competitive in the U.S. market. The change was immediate and chaotic. Shipping carriers paused services and Canadian e-commerce sites disabled U.S. checkout. The seamless flow of goods that had been taken for granted was now disrupted, causing confusion and frustration among business owners and customers alike. What was once a simple cross-border sale became a logistical nightmare overnight. Small business owners found themselves buried in paperwork, trying to navigate the new regulations and figure out how to continue serving their American customers without losing money. President Trump called the exemption a catastrophic loophole, citing both economic and national security concerns. He argued that the policy had been exploited, leading to unfair competition for American businesses and potential security risks. Small retailers who built their U.S. sales on seamless, duty-free shipping now face punishing tariffs or risk losing American customers. The cost of doing business has skyrocketed, and many are struggling to find ways to absorb these new expenses without passing them on to their customers. The decision has erected a digital wall, threatening the survival of many businesses, especially in border communities. These areas, which have long depended on cross-border trade, are now facing economic hardship as the flow of goods is choked off. From Windsor to British Columbia, companies that relied on U.S. revenue are scrambling for solutions. They are exploring new markets, adjusting their business models, and seeking government assistance to weather the storm. The once predictable flow of goods is choked off, and livelihoods hang in the balance. Workers are worried about their jobs, and business owners are concerned about their future. For many, the future is uncertain as they await clarity that may never come. The abrupt policy change has left them in limbo, unsure of how to move forward. The economic landscape for Canadian small business has been fundamentally reordered. The once thriving cross-border trade has been disrupted, and the road to recovery is uncertain. The Trump administration justified suspending the de minimis exemption with two arguments: stopping fentanyl smuggling and protecting American businesses. Officials claimed the $800 threshold was a loophole for drug traffickers, citing a surge in fentanyl deaths and alleged cartel activity in Canada. By ending the exemption, every package now faces greater scrutiny at the border. Beyond security, Trump argued the rule gave foreign companies an unfair edge over U.S. retailers. Revoking it, he said, levels the playing field and forces Canada to offer reciprocal trade terms. The move is less about a single rule and more about reshaping the entire trade relationship. The message is clear. America First means all trade benefits are up for renegotiation. The days of one-sided advantages are over. The cancellation of the de minimis threshold was not a random act. It was set off by a bold move from Canada: the introduction of its new Digital Services Tax, or DST. This policy marked a significant shift in how digital giants are taxed, and it sent shockwaves through international trade circles. The DST imposed a 3% levy on the revenues of major tech companies like Google and Amazon, targeting profits generated from Canadian users. For years, these global tech titans had operated in Canada, reaping huge profits while paying relatively little in local taxes. What made the tax even more controversial was its retroactive application, reaching back to profits earned in previous years. This move infuriated officials in Washington, who viewed it as a direct assault on American business interests and a threat to the global digital marketplace. President Trump wasted no time in responding. He abruptly terminated ongoing trade negotiations with Canada, issuing stern warnings of swift and severe retaliation. The message from the White House was clear: the U.S. would not tolerate what it saw as unfair targeting of its companies. Canadian officials, however, stood their ground. They argued that the tax was a matter of fairness, insisting that tech giants should contribute their fair share to the Canadian economy, especially when they profit so heavily from Canadian consumers and businesses. But from the US perspective, Canada's unilateral move was seen as undermining delicate global negotiations on digital taxation, threatening to unravel years of international cooperation on tax reform. The digital services tax quickly became a symbol of Canadian defiance and independence, with Ottawa refusing to back down despite mounting pressure from its largest trading partner. This standoff only fueled tensions further. The US responded by suspending the de minimis rule, a move that hit Canadian exporters hard and marked the first major shot in what was rapidly becoming a heated trade war between the two allies. What began as a dispute over digital taxation has now escalated into a full-blown economic conflict, with ripple effects spreading across industries and borders. Both countries are now bracing for further escalation. At the heart of this growing dispute lies the digital economy, a new frontier for global trade, regulation, and power. As the world watches, the outcome of this standoff could reshape the rules of international commerce for years to come. The de minimis crisis is just the latest in Trump's aggressive trade agenda. Upon returning to office, Trump threatened sweeping tariffs on Canadian exports, creating uncertainty for businesses. Tariffs on cars, steel, and aluminum were reinstated and doubled, sparking Canadian retaliation. The USMCA's promise of stability has been overshadowed by escalating tit-for-tat tariffs. Non-compliant Canadian goods now face prohibitive 50% tariffs, closing off US market access for many. The world's largest bilateral trading relationship is now defined by risk and unpredictability. Businesses and policymakers are left navigating a volatile new reality. Prime Minister Mark Carney has responded to US pressure with measured restraint, refusing to escalate rhetoric. Behind the scenes, Ottawa is weighing options: formal trade disputes, new tariffs, or negotiation. Business groups urge caution, warning that unilateral moves like the DST could backfire. Carney must balance defending Canadian interests with avoiding a damaging trade war. The government's decision to proceed with the DST has put it in Washington's crosshairs. Carney's calm public stance masks the intense pressure and high-stakes calculations underway. His leadership is being tested as Canada faces economic threats on multiple fronts. For Canadian small businesses, losing the de minimis exemption is more than just a policy change. It's an existential crisis that threatens their very survival. For years, this exemption allowed them to compete in the global marketplace, offering affordable products to US customers without the burden of high tariffs or complicated customs paperwork. Now that advantage has vanished almost overnight, leaving thousands of entrepreneurs scrambling to adapt. E-commerce shops that once relied on a steady stream of US customers now face tariffs as high as 35%, making their products suddenly unaffordable and uncompetitive. For many, the cost of shipping a single package has doubled or even tripled, erasing already thin profit margins and forcing them to reconsider their entire business model. Many, like Ruth Hoang of Foxwood Gifts, have been forced to pause US sales entirely or resort to desperate workarounds, such as hand-delivering packages across the border. These makeshift solutions are time-consuming, costly, and unsustainable in the long run. These stopgaps are only possible for those living near the border, leaving countless others with no viable options. For businesses located further inland, the border might as well be a wall. The sudden halt in cross-border sales is catastrophic for businesses built on international trade. Many are seeing their shelves empty, their doors close, and their dreams put on hold. Unlike large corporations, small retailers simply don't have the resources to absorb these new costs or pivot quickly to new markets. Every dollar counts, and every lost sale hurts. The end of duty-free shipping has effectively cut them off from their main growth market, leaving packages stranded and customers disappointed. While large corporations can adapt with teams of lawyers and logistics experts, small businesses are left to fend for themselves, often with little guidance or support. The future for many is perilously uncertain. Owners are left staring at empty stores, reading distressing news, and wondering how much longer they can hold on. This crisis has exposed just how vulnerable small players are in global trade disputes. Without urgent action or support, the backbone of Canada's economy could be changed forever. The trade dispute's impact is deeply personal for small business owners and consumers on both sides. Canadian entrepreneurs face layoffs and closures, feeling betrayed and powerless. American consumers lose access to unique Canadian goods, facing higher prices and delays. The U.S. focus on fentanyl smuggling has soured public perception, painting Canada unfairly as a threat. Years of trust and collaboration are being replaced by suspicion and frustration. The real cost is measured in broken relationships and lost goodwill. The dispute is fraying the close ties that once defined the U.S.-Canada partnership. The trade conflict threatens the broader U.S.-Canada relationship, undermining decades of trust and cooperation. Canada now views its closest ally as unpredictable, complicating collaboration on defense, environment, and migration. The dispute sends a warning to other nations about the reliability of U.S. partnerships. By targeting Canada, the U.S. risks weakening its global alliances and influence. At its core, this is a clash between rules-based order and transactional power politics. The outcome will shape the future of the Western alliance and global stability. The current standoff is a microcosm of a larger struggle over the future of international relations. As both countries watch anxiously, the next steps are uncertain. Prime Minister Carney must choose between backing down on the DST, retaliating, or seeking a formal dispute resolution. Small businesses are scaling back, some facing closure as the U.S. market slips away. The Trump administration may return to talks or press for more concessions, keeping tensions high. The de minimis suspension could be just the start of a broader trade overhaul. The once stable U.S.-Canada relationship is now marked by conflict and unpredictability. The decisions made in the coming months will shape North America's economic future. The only certainty is that the stakes have never been higher.